Hi, welcome to the Crafts channel. My name's Corinne Brad and today I've got a two-step demo for you to make your own reusable, customised tote bags. And they're simply made from old bed sheets, old 100% cotton bed sheets, and then they're fabric painted and then you customise them with a machine cut vinyl decal. So we'll get started. Let's just put this one to one side so I don't get paint on it. Grab yourself a large embroidery ring. And if you have the time and you have some scrap fabric, wrap the inner part of your ring with some cotton absorbent fabric. This is for two things. It will stop your fabric getting too creased while it's in the ring, and it will also soak up excess fabric. So if you ever want to use your ring again for embroidery, it's not all stained. Pop your piece of cotton fabric in the ring, and actually, because I'm going to make this into a tote bag later, I'm just going to raise it up slightly so that this piece here can be a double hem for a neat top to the bag. But try and make sure the bottom and the sides are the same kind of distance, because they will all have the same seam allowance. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to do a pretend globe, and I'm going to start with some of this turquoise green and a brush, and I'm going to paint a circle about 2 centimetres inside my ring. Now you don't want the brush too wet, because with 100% cotton fabric it will bleed, and in fact the bleeding effect is quite nice on the finished article, but just at the beginning you need to try and not knock your palette of fabric paint over. You just want an outline so you can see where to work to. Now I have experimented with doing this. I've tried rubbing a candle around the inside to act as a sort of block for the paint. Didn't really work, and I found the best way to do it is just make sure your brush is not too wet, because you can add more colour in a minute and let it stretch up to your outline. So you've got your outline there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to do a random squiggles. Dilute it down a bit. Look like tadpoles. Let's get a different colour. And just be careful as you're doing this. When you've got lots of colour on your brush, try and make sure that it doesn't drip on the edges of your fabric as you're working. And put these big splodges of colour not too close to that outline, because you can see as they're spreading out, it's starting to bleed already. Add a bit of green. Fill in some of those gaps. And then start working on just a little bit of colour near that border. Also make sure your fabric is straight underneath it, because if the paint should bleed through, it will end up staining another part of your work. Now this at the minute bears pretty much no resemblance to the bag that I showed you earlier. This one here. You know, you've got nice colours on, you know, nice blended in colours on there, whereas that you've got quite an abstract design. So what I would do now, and don't get carried away with this, you need to give yourself a bit of time and get yourself a water spray and literally spritz the middle of your work. And it's difficult to do this in real time, but what will happen is that fabric paint will start to stretch out. And you can just help it on its way. Because you want to try and get it up to that borderline without really going over the top, which is what it's starting to do there. So while that's spreading itself out into the borderline, you can just quickly fill in these holes in the middle. And when I say quickly, you do want to work quickly because the whole time you're racing against that spread. And the more liquid you put in the middle of your design, the more it will work its way out to the outer part. And if you've got areas where you think, well, that's a bit too green, I want a bit more sea in there, just fill it in. Okay, so that has now reached the degree of spread that you want. I just want to soften this line here and here. By overlaying more colour. And I'm just going to risk giving it one more spritz. Or maybe two. But before it spreads out too much further, I'm going to take this out, protect my ironing surface with a bit of tissue, pop it out of your hoop and lay it face down onto an ironing board. And then do not iron straight onto the back of that, because what you'll find is the fabric paint that you're using will come off on the underside of your iron. So grab yourself a little bit of greaseproof paper, lay it over the design, and then hot press it to stop the flow of liquid through that cotton. And the fabric paint that I'm using here, which is it's actually a tie-dye kit from Royal Talons. You seal it onto the fabric, you set it onto the fabric with a hot iron for 5 minutes. But I just want to dry this out to start with. So that it no longer spreads. So, that's how you make the background for your fabric. I'm just going to move this board here, and I'm going to show you how to cut a vinyl design, and I'm going to use the Silhouette Cameo. You run it with software off your computer. Now, I've pre-designed my lettering. I've fitted it into a sort of, 15 centimetre by 12.5 centimetre square. And the other thing is, because we're cutting vinyl, you're kiss cutting it, you're only going to do a half cut, and you need to cut it as a mirror image because you flip it over and iron it onto your fabric. So let's grab, need a bit of silver, and cut yourself, oh, there's fabric paint everywhere, cut yourself a 15 by about 12.5 centimetre square. Let's cut it about there. Now with the silhouette cameo, you can actually cut your design without a cutting mat. You can feed a full sheet in there and cut it without a cutting mat. I'm not brave enough to do that today. So I'm going to use their standard mat. Always keep the greaseproof sheet on the standard mat to make sure you don't get too much fluff on there. And then take your piece of vinyl and position it on the mat so that the coloured side is underneath. Take your mat, line it up to the rollers and feed it in. And then on your software, you want to send your design to your cameo machine. I've already got it set on heat transfer smooth on an auto cut. It's showing you here what's being cut out, and then I'm going to send it. And it's going to ask me, do I want to send it mirrored? Because it knows that it's got heat transfer vinyl in there. I don't want to send it mirrored because I've already mirrored it, and the reason I've already mirrored it is just in case I forgot to mirror it. So we'll just send it as it is. And the reason it does that little ticky at the beginning is it's automatically setting its blade height and it's cutting out the design. And the last thing it's cutting is a square around the design so that I know where the edge of it is. So we're just going to peel this off the mat in its entirety, and I'm just going to pop my protective sheet back over the mat. And then you will see on the back of this, you will see nothing because the blade on the silhouette is so fine, you can't actually tell where it cut. And this is why I always put a square around my designs if I can, because you can use a pin to get the very border out so that when you weed it, you know where to look. So I'm pretty confident that any of these corners are free of design. So I'm just going to pull this off, and here is the beginning of a little crab, the beginning of the wording. So there you go, you have your logo. Here's a couple that I designed earlier and pre-cut. There's one in gold there, and there's one in white. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ironing board and I'm going to lay a pre-made design on this. Now this is done in exactly the same way as the globe, but I've done it to represent the sun. There's also no reason why you can't put it on patterned fabric. We'll put the gold on there, and we'll put it on there at an angle. The carrier film for this is very slightly tacky. And I think you can actually iron straight onto the carrier film, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put a piece of paper over the top of it. I'm going to set my iron to about 2. Might need to let that cool down a little bit because I don't want it too hot. Vinyl transfer film has become so good these days. It doesn't, but you know, in the old days, if you had it too hot, what it used to do was it actually used to wrinkle your transfer film. And rather than ironing, you just want to start by pressing. And then you can take that off. Actually, you can iron it without a sheet on the top. If you're in any doubt at all, what you can do is once you've semi-fused that on there, is you can give it a good old iron on the back. And that way you know that your plastic's not going to melt, it shouldn't shift. Just give it a couple of seconds to cool down a little bit, and then check the bond by lifting one corner and easing that carrier film away from your lettering. If at any point you see your lettering start to lift, I would stop, lay it back down again and repress it and let it cool for a couple of seconds. But that's come off cleanly. And then just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put that sheet back on top and repress it. So there's your brilliant sunshine for a beach bag. And what there is actually, I'll try and put in the link, there's a video demonstration that I've done earlier, how to make an easy lined tote bag. So I'll put that link on there if you've never done one before. But essentially, this one's not lined, but it is just 2 rectangles of cotton fabric sewn together with a French seam, double hemmed at the top, straps made out of piping, and then we can lay this down and we can pop another decal over the top. And you can obviously put whatever design or lettering that you want on there. I mean, with the Silhouette Studio, the design software itself is quite intuitive. It's quite easy to use for someone that's not really that tech savvy. I've been able to produce more or less exactly what I want. I've just realised I've laid this down. I haven't weeded this out completely. Never mind. I'm not even going to try and weed that out. I wonder if you can. I've just made it a little bit different. There you go. You like my demos. I always like to make a mistake. And that mistake is always check that you've weeded your design out fully before you fuse it to your piece of fabric. Because once it's on there, I really don't think you're going to get it off again. So there you go. Let's just get that iron out of the way before I do any more damage with it. Very easy, very effective method of making a background for your own custom vinyl transfer tote bag. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope you'll come back and see us again very, very soon. We've got lots of demonstrations coming up. And if you check the description below, it will give you some information about the Silhouette Cameo and the software to create your own designs. In the meantime, please keep safe. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon. If you've been inspired to create, please share your makes with us in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.